guy just looked like my man and I couldn't control myself, but it was a trap.
I accidentally cheated on my man just after we got our first baby. I have never felt so scared of losing anything in my life. I am afraid my fiancé will leave me and it is all my fault. It was an accident, I can swear it was, but I know how stupid that sounds. I need advice on what to do before I make the wrong move and lose it all. My fiancé, M30, and I, F28, welcomed our baby girl 5 months ago. It was the happiest moment of our lives, and my fiancé's love for me grew even more. Everything is perfect, but I am scared my poor decisions will take it all away from me. I met my fiancé almost 10 years ago at my 18th birthday party. My parents were extremely strict and they never allowed me to go to parties or even throw parties. I lived a very normal life with my parents and my 2 sisters. Ever since I was a little girl, I counted the days to my 18th birthday because I knew turning 18 would give me a little bit of freedom. I had a friend named Anna. She was an only child, so she grew up with a lot of freedom. Anna promised to throw me a birthday party in her house. After a lot of persuasion, my parents gave me permission to go, but on the condition that I took my older sister with me. Anna dressed me up and even lent me her best dress. The party was nothing like I'd ever seen before, but something else caught my eye. My fiancé, Chris, was the center of attention at my own birthday party. I found him extremely confident and attractive, and so did everyone else. I was too shy to say hi to him, but Anna wasn't. After speaking to Chris, Anna told me she had a crush on him. I was surprised because my friend was never one to crush on a guy first. Chris was charming and snobbish at the same time, and these were qualities Anna was drawn to. 2 weeks after my party, I ran into Chris at the grocery store. He recognized me as the birthday girl, and from there, we started talking. I was extremely shy at first because I had no experience with boys, but Chris was warm and friendly, so it was much easier. Soon enough, Anna, Chris, and I became a trio. We did almost everything together. I knew I liked Chris, but I brushed it off because Anna already confessed her feelings for him to me. 1 year later, Chris and Anna started dating, and I decided to give them space because I did not want to be a third wheel. Chris and Anna dated for 1 more year, but something happened. Anna told me she got drunk at a party and cheated on Chris. I kept her secret from him, but Anna cheated on him many times after that. One day, Chris found out and they broke up. Anna blamed me for their breakup and accused me of telling him. I told her that wasn't true, but it fell on deaf ears. That was the end of our friendship. Anna moved out of town with her parents and Chris went to New York to study law. I also got into college soon after that. 4 years later, I graduated from college and moved to New York for work. Coincidentally, I ran into Chris when he came to the boutique I worked in for shopping. I was really shocked to see him, and I could tell he was surprised too. We spent hours catching up and talking about life. It felt like I was in a dream. I could not believe that I ran into my old-time crush. I discovered that Chris was now a lawyer in a very successful firm, name withheld for personal reasons. He was earning 6 figures every month and he was quite popular. Chris was from a rich family and his parents were well-known people. I worked as a fashion designer in a luxury boutique, name withheld, and Chris would always find time to come see me. Months flew by and soon, Chris and I were good friends again. After 1 year of flirting, Chris asked me out and it was an instant yes. Our relationship became pretty serious and we could not spend a day apart. I was the envy of his female colleagues because Chris never hesitated to bring me to his workplace. Life was good and I was living the life I always wanted. A few months later on my birthday, Chris gave me the sum of $500,000 as my birthday gift. I was so grateful because it was more than enough money for me to start my own boutique. 1 year later, my boutique was already running and I had enough money to build 5 more. Chris was also promoted and we earned more than enough money to take care of ourselves. Chris proposed to me a few weeks after his promotion and I said yes, instantly. I was so excited that I did not resist posting it on my Instagram account. Chris bought a house months later and asked me to move in. My parents wanted us to get married first, but I talked them out of it. I wanted the perfect wedding with Chris, so I did not want to rush it. I already met Chris Pattons by that time and they were nice. They were also against us moving in together without getting married first. Chris told me his family was a very traditional family. Just like my family, they were strict. After a lot of persuasion, his parents did not have a problem with us moving in together. Life with Chris was great and I fell in love with him every single day. He was caring, generous, and extremely loving. He treated me like I was the only woman in the world. Anytime we had disagreements, Chris would never raise his voice or try to snap at me. He was always calm and ready to listen to me first. Chris took care of me when I was sick and would miss work for me sometimes. I cherished every moment with him like it was the last because I never believed I deserved him. Some months later, we decided to have a baby. After weeks of trying, I got pregnant. Chris was overjoyed and I could see the excitement in his eyes when I broke the news to him. He did not let me do anything after that. I had a stress-free pregnancy and it was beautiful. When I gave birth to my daughter, Chris' love for me multiplied. I was insecure about my postpartum body, but it was never a problem for Chris. He took it upon himself to work out with me and get my confidence back. Our daughter was like the icing on the cake because we already had a happy life. She multiplied it for us. I posted a series of pictures and videos of myself with Chris and our daughter in a joint Instagram post with Chris. That was the beginning of my problems. I had just 1,000 followers on Instagram. When I made those posts, I didn't expect it to get as much engagement as it did. Chris was quite popular, but I did not think people would take an interest in his personal life. If only I did not make those posts, I'd not be in this predicament. 3 months after our daughter was born, Chris went on a work trip to Italy. He was not going to be back for 3 weeks. Parting with him for that long was hard for me, but I had no choice. He had to go to work. He already took weeks off work after I gave birth to our daughter. The first week without Chris was depressing and boring. I tried to focus on work and our daughter, but none of it seemed to excite me. I knew it was going to be difficult, but I never expected it to be as depressing as it was. Chris had spoiled me with his presence so much that I was too used to it. Before the work trip, the longest we had stayed apart was 3 days. Chris called me every day, but it was just not enough. I missed and craved everything about him. It was just the first week and it was already feeling like a month. One day, my personal assistant noticed my mood and invited me to a party. I was not used to partying, but she promised it would be a good distraction. I spoke to Chris about it and he encouraged me to go. He did not like the way I looked tired when he video called me. I dropped our daughter off at his mom's house before going to the party that night. I wore a black knee-length gown that was not too revealing. I was not looking for a partner, I already had one I was extremely proud of. I took just 1 drink at the party because I did not want to get drunk. After 2 hours, I was ready to get home and snuggle with my daughter. On my way out, I met a guy named Roy who was just as tall as Chris. He looked so much like my fiancé that I had to do a double take. The only difference was the eyes and face. Chris was also more muscular than him. To my surprise, Roy asked me if I wanted a drink. I politely declined, but then he insisted. I did not like the idea of a stranger buying me a drink, so I tried walking away, but Roy said something that made me stop. He told me he was Chris's friend and Chris asked him to keep me company. I found it weird because Chris had never introduced Roy to me before, but Roy said he was not based in New York. He went as far as telling me some things about Chris. I believed him because Chris was not one to speak to just anyone unless he knew them well. Roy bought me a drink and I made the mistake of drinking it. After another drink, I was dizzy and I had a headache. I told Roy I wanted to go home and he offered to take me home. I dozed off in the car and only woke up when Roy tapped me. He told me I was home already. He guided me out of the car, but I noticed that we were somewhere else. I asked Roy where we were at and he told me his car was faulty and he could not drive it further. I told him I would rather take a cab home and get to my daughter, but Roy said it was already too late for a cab. I thought about it for a while and gave in because I was feeling quite tired and weak. Roy guided me into what I later discovered was his house. I asked him for painkillers for my headache, but he gave me hot milk to drink. That relieved me a little. Roy showed me the room I would be sleeping in and I thanked him before closing the door. I felt comfortable because I believed he was Chris' friend. I tried calling Chris, but I discovered that my phone was dead. I wanted to take a shower but had no clothes to change into, so I just laid on the bed and tried to get some sleep. Sometime into the night, Roy knocked on the door. I opened the door and found him standing there in just a towel. He was completely shirtless and his hair was wet. For some reason, he styled his hair just like Chris did. He already had an uncanny resemblance to Chris, but now, it seemed more defined. I asked Roy what he was looking for, and he told me he just wanted to grab his shirt. After grabbing his shirt, he asked me why I had not taken a shower, and I told him I did not have clothes to change into. To my surprise, he offered me his shirt and insisted I wore it. I still felt a little bit dizzy, so I decided to take a hot bath. While I was in the bath, Roy walked in completely naked. I was too stunned to say a word and too tired to move. He just quietly stood there and watched me for a long time. I snapped out of my trance and told him to get out. I kept thinking about Chris and how he would feel if he knew that I saw his friend naked. Roy ignored me, then proceeded to touch himself. He was masturbating in front of me. Imagine how confused I was at that sight. I was drunk, and seeing him do that felt wrong and exciting at the same time. It did not help that I had been sexually starved for over 3 weeks. Chris was extremely busy for 2 weeks before his trip. The temptation was too much, and then I found myself touching myself. It was wrong, I should not have done it, but I could not stop once I started. The worst part was that Roy and Chris looked almost similar. Soon enough, I thought I was looking at my husband touching himself, and then things escalated. Roy got into the tub with me and we had sex. The next morning, after I woke up with a stranger in bed with me, I knew I had made the biggest mistake of my life. My head felt like it was being stabbed with a knife. It was not just a hangover. I found out that Roy had spiked my drink with some sort of cannabis. The most shocking part is that Roy confessed that he was hired by someone to get me to cheat on my husband. He said his job was done and he left me in the house. I had consented. I knew I had consented because I still remember it all. Yes, he left me. That man drugged me, then ran away. I cheated on my husband. I thought I was having sex with my husband because the drug made the similarities between them more defined. I went back home and I felt like a cheat. I could not even look at my daughter because I felt so much guilt. Chris treated me like a queen and I broke his trust. I should not have gone to the party at all. I didn't even have time to think about who hired Roy. I was too depressed to think about myself. It's been a week since I cheated on my husband and a week till he'll be back home. I don't know what to do. I have ignored all his calls because I don't have the courage to hear his voice. I don't even know how I'll face him in a week's time. People of Reddit, I need your advice urgently. It was an accident, but I still cheated. Should I tell him the truth or lie? I cannot live with myself. The guilt is tormenting me. Please tell me what to do. I'm helpless. Update. Hi everyone, it's been 5 months and I wanted to tell you all how it's going. Some of you in the comments called me a fool. I deserve it. Immediately Chris got back, I told him the truth like most of you suggested. I don't think I had ever seen such disappointment and hurt in his eyes. He stared at me for a long time without saying a word. It felt like I had lost all his respect. After some time, he quietly went to his study and locked the door for hours. It was the most tormenting period of my life. I cried out my eyes, but I never knocked on the door. That would have been very selfish of me. He had every right to be angry, so I let him be. I was ready to accept whatever step he wanted to take. Even if he wanted to leave me, I would not hate him. I brought shame upon myself. I was gullible. 2 days after that, Chris forwarded a message to me. In the message, someone sent Chris pictures of me leaving the party with Roy. The person also told Chris what happened. Chris was a lawyer, so he talked to his friends, and they traced the message to Anna. Yes, Anna. Anna hired Roy because she wanted to ruin our relationship. I was so angry that I searched for Roy with the help of Chris, and then he led us to Anna when we threatened to take him to the authorities. When we finally met Anna and demanded answers, she accused me of taking Chris away from her. She felt like I told Chris she cheated years back, so she wanted to pay me back by setting me up. Roy had switched off my phone, and Anna was the one who told him personal things about Chris, so I would believe him. Apparently, she had seen all my Instagram posts with Chris and got jealous. There was nothing I could do because I had fallen into her trap. I got home that day feeling defeated, but what was more shocking was that Chris asked for a break. He moved out of the house and we did not speak for 2 months. I lived a miserable life in those 2 months, but my daughter made it better. After 2 months, Chris finally forgave me and he told me he loved me so much he could not lose me. I was shocked, happy and grateful because I never thought he'd come back. We got married 2 months later with our daughter as the little bride. She could hardly walk. My life is back to being beautiful and I have my husband by my side. I hope my story inspires someone and makes them more self-aware. I was lucky to have a husband that was ready to forgive me. Thank you to everyone that commented and advised me to tell my husband the truth. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't. I sit on my couch, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't think something like this would happen to me. I, male, 28 years, and have been married for 5 to my wife, female, 28 years. We got married soon after we graduated university. We met each other through mutual friends at some college party. She was smiling at me and I thought she was beautiful. We began talking and found that we shared many classes together. She asked me to save her a seat beside me in the next class and I did. We used to run into each other quite a lot. We used to hang out with our friends and in classes. After a month went like this, I decided it's time that I asked her out on a date. "You want to go out tonight?" I asked her, heart beating in my chest. "Sure, who all are coming?" she asked, clueless. "Just us," I said with a smile. She smiled at me like she has been waiting for this as well. I took her to a fancy restaurant near our campus, and that's how we began dating. We were happy in our relationship. I vowed to myself to work hard to build us a future we both wanted. We soon graduated college and moved in together in a small apartment. Everything was going good. We both used to work on different jobs, but still made the time for each other whenever we could. I knew I wanted to spend my life with her, so I proposed her to marry me at the same restaurant we went to on our first date. She was teary-eyed and said yes. We got married quite young, but we thought, why to wait when we are sure about each other? I knew I wanted her and she wanted me. So what could go wrong in our marriage? We navigated through life together. When we had hard days, we would hug each other and hoped that the next day would be better. We celebrated the good days with each other. We came a long way in these 5 years professionally as well as personally. We were living happily together until all of it came apart. My wife started acting differently around 3 months back. There wasn't any big difference in her behavior, but there were small things. I asked her if something was wrong and she said it was just stress from work.
Hey everyone. Unfortunately, basically everyone who is watching these videos isn't subscribed. It would mean the world to me to quickly get out of the full screen video for 3 seconds and press that subscribe button. It's free and you can unsubscribe anytime. Sorry for bothering and thank you so much if you subscribed.
I believed her and let it go. But the patterns didn't come to an end. She started leaving for work before I could wake up and would be home really late from work. We stopped having meals together. I felt like she was ignoring me for some reason. Every time I asked her, she would give me some reason or the other. We have been together for quite a long time, so I didn't think she had any reason to lie to me. One day when I came home, she was in the kitchen. I could hear her whispering. No, I'll be there," she said. When she saw me coming, she hung up the call. "Who was that?" I asked casually. She told her it was her friend from the office. They were inviting her for dinner that weekend. She used to meet her girlfriends from work at least twice a month. So it seemed plausible that she was talking to any one of them. I didn't pay much attention to it and then went back to the living room. Everything was going normal in our life. My wife was still acting differently around me. Her work was really stressing her out, I thought to myself. She got dressed in a really gorgeous dress that weekend when she was going out with her friends. She never used to put so much effort in dressing to impress others. It was one of those things I noticed in the beginning, and it stuck with her throughout our marriage life as well. This was different. I've seen taking hours to get ready when we went out on date nights, but she never did this for a casual night out like she told me she was going that day. I thought, maybe I'm overthinking over nothing, and decided to let it go. I kept waiting for her, but she didn't come back home in time. I texted her, but she didn't reply to them either. I got really worried. I called for her, but she didn't pick any of them. I was worried if something bad had happened to her. I was pacing back and forth thinking who to call. I didn't even know which restaurant they went to. Just as I was about to call a friend of hers, she called me back. I asked her where she was. She told me she's with her friend and she'll be home late. She told me not to worry and to sleep, and then hung up on me. I couldn't sleep that night because I had no idea where my wife was. I was in bed waiting for her the whole night. I heard her footsteps when the front door opened and she came to the bedroom. "You're up?" she asked me. I told her I couldn't sleep. She told me how the night ran long and they didn't even realize it. She came to bed after getting in her pajamas. "Let's sleep," she said as she snuggled by my side. I gave her a slow smile. But I still couldn't fall asleep. I had a feeling in my gut that my wife was hiding something from me. Why can't I just ask her? I thought in my head. There was a distance between us now. I didn't know what had brought it, but it was there between us. And I didn't know what to do to take it away. Just when I was engrossed in my thoughts, her phone kept getting notifications. They were all text messages. I took her phone to see who has been texting her this early in the morning. The contact wasn't saved on her phone. The text messages sent me in a spiral of confusion. All the texts were weird and didn't make any sense. That person was thanking my wife last night. What did they do last night, and why was this person telling her to meet next weekend as well? The texts were really short and vague. It was impossible for me to figure out if this person is a male or a female. I didn't want to wake up my wife, so I thought of asking her after she woke up. I didn't realize when I fell asleep. When I woke up, I heard noises coming from the kitchen. I went there to find my wife cooking for us. She gave me a smile when she saw me. I didn't know why, but something inside me stopped me from asking her who was texting her. We ate our meal in silence. The next day, when I came to my car after work, I saw a note stuck to the wiper of the car. I looked to see if there was someone who had kept it there, but I didn't see anyone there. I opened the note. It only said, "Stay safe." I didn't know what that meant. There was no name of the person who had written it or kept it there. I made my way home with a confused mind. Why would someone leave a note like that for me? I kept wondering. It cannot be a coincidence that I got a note like this after my wife started acting differently. I could have asked her, but I didn't think she was going to give me an honest answer. I saw a car leaving my house when I reached home. My wife was getting inside the house. I followed her and asked her whose car was that. She told me a friend of hers was visiting. Which friend? I asked curiously. None of her friends I know own that car. Oh, just a colleague, she said distractedly. Office colleague? I followed up. Was all I got. I left her in the living room and went to my home office. I checked the CCTV camera. I saw a tall, dark-haired guy leaving the campus before I came home. So it was a male colleague visiting her, I thought silently. I didn't stop there. I replayed previous week's recordings as well. Realization drawn on me. This guy had visited my home various times in the last 3 months. Sometimes, he came to pick my wife. We never checked CCTV cameras unless there was something we were looking for specifically. My wife probably thought that I wouldn't check it. There was no way I was going to talk to my wife now. She never once told me that a man had been visiting our house when I wasn't at home. It didn't matter if he was a colleague or whatever. I deserved to know this. Now I'm going to find the truth by myself. I replayed the CCTV recordings once again. I noticed their body language. It wasn't like two colleagues who are meeting professionally. They knew each other well. I saw them hugging each other closely before he drove off. Between my wife's strange behavior, that random note, and a stranger hugging my wife like they have known each other since forever, I felt completely frustrated. I needed to find the truth before I lost my mind completely. I started keeping a close eye on my wife's actions. I woke up early so she cannot avoid me in the mornings. It was like she had started becoming a different person altogether. Her dressing sense had completely changed in the last 3 months. Earlier, her priority was to be comfortable in her clothes, but now it was like she had borrowed the closet of a model. I received another note placed on my car. This one said, "Be careful of who you trust." This only made me more confused. I didn't know anyone who would talk like this to me. My friends never pulled pranks like this. It wasn't making any sense. I saw a woman I had never seen before standing some distance to my car. I asked her if she had seen anyone putting this on my car. She shook her head no. I sighed, frustrated. I took a picture of the note like I did with the previous one and threw it in the dustbin. I decided to deal with this later. My topmost priority was to figure out what my wife has been hiding from me. When I went home after work, my wife wasn't there. I saw an envelope with my name and opened it. The contents of the mail took my breath away. My heart started beating fast. My worst nightmare had come true. Inside the envelope were pictures of my wife with that man from CCTV recordings. They were hugging each other, laughing together. There was a picture of him kissing my wife's forehead in a very romantic manner. It was clear, my wife was cheating on me. I could have confronted her that evening itself, but I wanted to catch her in the act. I didn't want to leave any chance so she could feed me some other stupid lie. I hid the envelope in my office drawer. I acted completely unaware in front of her. When one evening she told me that she is going out with her work friends, I nodded my head and went to my home office. I waited for her to leave the home and then took my car and trailed her behind. I needed to see if she's meeting her friends or that guy from the photographs. I saw her car leaving the city lights behind and then taking off-road to a very cottage-type home. What was she doing here so out of the city? Was my first thought. My thoughts got interrupted when I saw the car parked outside the cottage. It was the same car who I saw leaving my house that day. I saw her getting inside the cottage. The same guy from the CCTV recordings opened the door and they hugged each other. I saw her kissing him on cheeks and that was enough. I had run out of patience. They had left the door open and I opened it with a strong force. They got scared and pulled back from each other. My wife was shocked that it was me who opened the door. "What are you doing here?" she asked me. "Shouldn't I be asking you questions?" I replied flatly. "This is what you've been doing behind my back," I continued while pointing to both of them. She made the expression that she didn't understand what I'm saying but then started shaking her head no. "You are free to do what you want. You don't have to go behind my back. I'm out of here and your life as well." I started walking back to door when she ran and stopped me. "No, you cannot walk away from my life. Just give me 1 hour. I'll explain everything to you and then you can decide what to do," she told me with pleading eyes. "You are going to explain to me why you cheated on me?" I asked her, shocked by her words. "Just give me a chance to explain myself please," she continued. She went to the guy and told him that she needs to tell me the truth now. He nodded. I sat there confused, not knowing what was going to happen next. She introduced me to the guy. His name was Jack. He started working in her company a year ago. When she told me his name, I realized that I heard his name in passing. I just didn't know his face. They asked me to sit down. My wife started telling me something when suddenly the door opened. There was a woman standing there. Tears streamed down her face. I had seen her somewhere, I just didn't know where. You cheated on me, she started screaming at Jack. He was trying to calm her down. He was telling her that he didn't cheat on her. He was talking to her like he was trying to make a child understand his point. I looked at my wife for an explanation. She was watching the woman with sympathy in her eyes. I didn't know what was going on here. The woman was continuously sobbing while Jack was explaining something to her in a soothing voice. He then came to my wife and told her that he's taking that woman to her home. My wife looked hesitant by the idea but then nodded and they left. I took a seat again on the couch and sighed. I was mentally exhausted at this point from all the drama and lies in my life. My wife took a seat beside me. She started talking and all the drama earlier seemed like a child's play when she told me the truth. The woman who entered was Sarah. She was in a long-term relationship with Jack's twin brother. Sadly, he passed away a year ago. Sarah had not been in stable condition since then. She refused to acknowledge that her boyfriend is no more. She had been in a very bad condition after her boyfriend passed away. Her friends took her to a counselor. The counselor suggested that for the time being, his twin brother, Jack, played his role and then detach her from her boyfriend. Jack was hesitant about this but did what they told him to. Their plan backfired and instead, she got more attached to him. She believed him to be her boyfriend. She wasn't recovering, so the counselor told her the truth that Jack wasn't her boyfriend. She did not believe anyone. Her boyfriend suddenly passing away has destroyed her completely. The counselors told him that maybe seeing Jack with another woman would make her realize that he was a different person. He was single and didn't want to date anyone, so he requested my wife to act to be with him. He needed someone he trusted. He was told that he needed to be with someone who was completely different than Sarah. That's why you decided to dress up completely different? I asked her. She nodded in affirmation. It was finally making sense now. I wanted to tell you, but it wasn't my secret to tell, and Jack asked for the time till Sarah finally accepted it. She said to me, I asked her why she started ignoring me. I felt guilty for not telling you the truth. I couldn't face you like that. I'm sorry, she whispered silently. Why didn't you come home that night? She knew which night I was talking about. Sarah felt unconscious and we had to rush her to the hospital. I was at the hospital all night. I told her that I received an envelope full of pictures of her with Jack. We needed to act like we were together so Sarah could finally acknowledge the truth. It was just a show for her. She told me. Who sent me this envelope? I asked. Sarah. She thought that I was cheating on you with her boyfriend. Sarah told Jack today that she has evidence of us cheating and she'll show it to you as well. I then realized that it was Sarah who I saw near my car, and I even asked her if she saw someone. I told my wife that I saw Sarah at work one day. But Sarah doesn't work, she said, also confused as to what she was doing there. I told her about the notes. I showed her a picture of the notes on my phone. My wife recognized Sarah's handwriting. She used to send Jack notes. I remember it, she said. Everything was finally making sense. Sarah was warning me because she felt that my wife is cheating on me with her boyfriend. Why did you kiss him today? I asked, remembering that moment. We thought it was Sarah who was coming. I heard footsteps before you entered, so I figured it was her. That's why we came here. This is Jack's home. He wanted her to see he was a different person with a different home, a different life. She had a habit of following Jack everywhere. That's probably how she took the pictures as well. Finally, the mystery was solved. I couldn't stop feeling bad about Sarah. Losing someone you love can do this to someone. I almost lost my mind when I thought my wife cheated on me. I just wanted to get home after that with my wife after all this drama, so I did exactly that. I went home with my wife beside me.